Hey folks, welcome back to the Greg Luchak Show. I'm back here at the 110-year-old basement renovation. As we said last week, this week we're going to be flattening our floor and finishing the plastering. But it's Tuesday, and the plaster, we're on the second coat, it's on, but it's taking a long time to dry. So I'm going to give it an extra day to dry before I do my finish coat. So we're going to start flattening the floor today. And I'll just turn the camera around and we'll tell you how we're going to do that. Okay, so I've cleared off the floor. It's this area in here that we need to flatten. I know if it's hard, it might be hard to see, but in this area of the concrete floor, right here, once upon a time, was a furnace. And these older houses, this is 110 years old, could very well have been a coal burning furnace for all we know, but there's a hump in the floor there. And then there's a lot of uneven spots. And then we come around here, and the lowest point of the floor is here, where the drain is, which is almost covered over. You can see it there a bit. But the slope of this floor, we're not going to try and level it, because on the low end here, we have to bring it up probably over 2 inches. And that's just too much to try and level the floor. So what we're going to do is flatten the floor, so when we install our dry core, it lays flat and we don't have to do any shimming. And this is what we're going to use. Because floor leveler is very expensive, I'm going to water down mortar, and we're going to spread that out. Now that could take a couple of days to dry too, we'll see, because it's very humid because of the weather right now. But that's the process we're going to use. Is we're going to use watered down mortar and let that level out and trowel that out and let that dry, so that we prep the floor for our dry core. So I'll just stop now as we start to prepare our mortar bed, or our level bed, whatever you want to call it, that process. Okay, so here we are. We're starting to mix it, and you can see it's very, very thinly mixed. We use probably double the water you would normally use, because we want it to almost self-level. We'll give it a little bit of help. This is the first bucket, and we'll give that a go. Okay, we've spread our first bucket. Now it's not quite flat. I'm still troweling that out. I'm going to pour another bucket here, and then I'm going to screed it with a straight edge. And here we're starting to come up to that hump in the floor. Okay, now that's a bag of mortar done in 2 pours. And we screeded it with a 4-foot straight edge. There'll be a few ridges here and there, but what we'll do when it's dry is we'll just grind those off if they're a problem. But now we're going to come forward and feather our way out over towards this drain. Okay, we've poured this whole section here. It's not too bad. There's a couple of ridges here and there, but hopefully as it settles, right? Because it's very wet, so it's settling. It kind of flattens out a bit more. We'll grind off whatever ridges are in our way. Now we may end up having to add some more, another layer. I'll check it when it's dry, because it's hard to do when it's wet, obviously, because we bought 6 bags. We used 2, which did I guess a couple hundred square feet anyway. And there, the drain is like right there. So we have to clean that drain out, actually. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to, because we're covering this over with dry core, whether we create a hatch door or not. But there's the flattening of the floor, and our second coat of drywall, or plaster on our drywall. And we'll come back tomorrow and we'll see what this looks like when it's hardened up. Okay, here we are, day 2 of the flattening the floor. And it's relatively hard. You can see it's still dry, but we have some low spots. That you can see that. Like I went around with a straight edge and checked for low spots. So I'm going to try and flatten those low spots out first. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to raise the floor over here by about 3/4 of an inch around the drain. So we're going to try and flatten out over here a bit more so that when we lay our dry core and then lay our laminate flooring, that it lays flat. That's the whole key. So you can see where we've added some drain, and this drain is actually plugged. We're going to have to vacuum that out, and we may have to snake it because it's been dry for a long time and seems to be full of stuff. So there's where we're at. So I'll come back when we've added some more mortar. Okay, so now you can see where we filled in the dips. It's very liquidy, it's very watered down mortar. And we just trowel it out, filling in, like the response to that were anywhere from 1/8 to 1/4 to 3/8. We feather it out, and because it's so wet, it's going to continue to settle and kind of self-level or self-flatten. And like I said before, when it's dry, we come back. If there's any ridges, we'll just scrape them off or we'll grind them off. And that's that section. Now we're going to come over here and we're going to pour this section. And then we're going to let that dry for another day. Okay, so now we've poured around the drain. There's a few ridges there, but hopefully they'll flatten out. But we're going to do one more pour, very liquid pour, similar to that, maybe even more liquid, which will really flatten out the floor. We'll do that tomorrow. Hopefully, now this is rather thick. It's about 3/4 of an inch around the drain. It's fairly thick. So we'll see how that dries overnight. We have a dehumidifier has been running the whole time. So we'll come back tomorrow and we'll see how it looks, and we'll do the last pour to flatten this floor out. Okay, we've got our final coat of plaster on. We did a little bit of sanding, but it's all ready for paint, just about. Got our second coat, actually our final coat on the staircase. You can see that. Our cement board wall. So it just needs a very light sanding ready for paint, and we've done our final pour on the floor, so it's flattened out as best we could. We'll let that dry over the weekend. So stay tuned for next week's video when we'll be laying the dry core flooring, and then we'll also be doing some trim and hanging some doors, etc., and possibly get to the priming. So hope you enjoyed this week's video. As always, you have a great day and you keep crushing it.